Beneath the courthouse lawn in Tulsa, Oklahoma, darkness had been waiting for 50 years. Layers of soil pressed down like the weight of forgotten time, sealing away a dream from the summer of 1957. A moment when Americans believed tomorrow would arrive on wings of chrome. When the vault was opened in 2007, the crowd fell silent. Lights swept into the pit, and there it was, the silhouette of a Plymouth Belvedere, its once brilliant fins now wrapped in mud, the color of old memories. This was not a car anymore, it was a message from another America. Back in 1957, it had been a promise. Low, long, futuristic, shimmering with Virgil Exner's forward-look confidence. A sedan born from the space age, before the space age had even arrived. But time had not been kind. The Belvedere had risen like a rocket, fallen like one too, and then slipped quietly beneath the earth. In the bright optimism of mid-1950s America, Detroit believed it could predict the future in steel. Suburbs were rising, highways stretching, and families wanted cars that looked like they belonged on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral. General Motors dominated that world with effortless confidence. Ford followed close behind. Chrysler, though brilliant in engineering, had fallen into a reputation for conservative shapes and cautious decisions. Then came a designer who refused to accept caution as destiny. Virgil Exner called his vision the forward look, a philosophy that said cars should not resemble the past, but the tomorrow people imagined when they looked up at the sky. The 1957 models were the culmination of that idea, rushed into production a full year ahead of schedule. When the first Belvedere rolled into showrooms, jaws dropped in a way Detroit had rarely witnessed. Period reviewers in Motor Trend wrote that Chrysler had leapt past the industry with a single stride, describing the cars as lower, longer, wider, and more daring than anything in their class. The Belvedere captured the look perfectly. Its tail fins did not merely gesture upward, they soared, tapering into razor-like points that seemed to slice into the air. The roofline hovered low and sleek, held by thin pillars that made the glass appear almost suspended. The stance was aggressive, as though the car were ready to leap forward even when parked. In photographs, it looked impossibly modern beside its 1956 predecessor, which suddenly felt like an artifact from another decade. Inside, the jet age had taken root. Plymouth offered color-keyed dashboards, sweeping gauge clusters, and chrome accents meant to echo aircraft switchgear. Upholstery came in bold two-tone combinations, bronze and ivory, turquoise and silver, exactly the palette mid-century America used to paint its dreams. Brochures boasted that the cabins were styled for flight, and buyers believed it. But beauty alone does not win battles in Detroit. Beneath the sculpted bodywork, the Belvedere carried a mechanical heart that tried to match the styling's ambition. Plymouth's V8 lineup ranged from the 301 to the high-compression 318 polyhead, the latter advertised as delivering V8 authority with effortless cruising power. In the Fury, the limited production performance flagship, a 303 cubic inch V8 with dual 4 barrels pushed the company into true hot rod territory. Period road tests recorded strong acceleration, a depth of torque unusual for Plymouth's segment, and a smoothness that surprised drivers who expected something rougher. Then, there was the Torqueflite. Introduced for 1957, Chrysler's new 3-speed automatic was a quantum leap over the 2-speed units many competitors still used. Reviewers praised its crisp upshifts, writing that it responded with the precision of a well-tuned chronometer. Behind the Belvedere's powerful V8s, it made the sedan feel modern, quick, and refined, traits Plymouth had long struggled to claim. For a brief moment, it worked. Sales surged. Showrooms stayed crowded. Even GM designers reportedly visited dealers to study the lines, a sign of respect rarely granted. Chrysler believed it had changed the rules of styling, and the 1957 Belvedere stood at the center of that revolution. But revolutions come with a price. Deep inside the factories, workers whispered that the new models were not ready. The frames were lighter, the deadlines tighter, and Chrysler had pushed everything to the limit to launch the forward look ahead of its rivals. While the public admired the shape, the engineers held their breath. The cracks, literally and metaphorically, were already forming. They began quietly, stories from dealers, small notes in service bulletins, whispers passed between mechanics who had seen too much too soon. Cars returning within weeks, sometimes days, a suspension arm that fractured on a rough road, a door that refused to stay aligned, electrical gremlins flickering behind the dashboard. And beneath the gleaming tailfins, a far more insidious problem: rust. Not the slow, patient rust that takes years to claim a car, but a kind that seemed almost eager, crawling across seams, bubbling under paint, turning fresh sheet metal into red dust before warranty books were even creased. Chrysler had pushed the forward look through production with a ferocity that left little room for caution. Welding shortcuts, thin gauge metal, poorly sealed cowls, these were compromises made in the shadows behind the bright light of Virgil Exner's design triumph. Inside the factory, some workers joked that the 1957s looked like 62s in 6 months, a biting remark that hinted at how fast deterioration could set in. Period newspapers began to notice. The Detroit Free Press reported that Chrysler's rapid tooling changes had stressed the corporation's manufacturing stability, while Popular Mechanics noted, in a subdued paragraph, that early models showed unusual signs of wear. Dealers scrambled to reassure buyers, while technicians worked overtime to address failures no one had been prepared for. Plymouth, so proud of the car's advanced silhouette, now found itself defending the very bones beneath it, and the timing could not have been worse. Ford and Chevrolet recognized the threat instantly. GM rolled out aggressive promotions comparing its build quality to rivals, while Ford boasted of proven construction, a quiet jab at Chrysler's troubles. In 1957, design sold cars, but durability kept customers, and the Belvedere's dazzling forward leap had left its foundations exposed. Yet for all its faults, the Belvedere remained unforgettable. It dominated boulevard nights, where neon lights traced along its fins like glowing runway markers. Teenagers watched them cruise past drive-ins and thought they were seeing tomorrow. Families posed beside them for holiday photos. Plymouth's bold move had reshaped Detroit's design language, forcing competitors to chase the look for years. Even critics admitted that, flaws aside, the 1957 forward look was one of the most influential styling revolutions in post-war America. But influence does not guarantee survival. The year that followed brought a recession that cut into auto sales nationwide. Buyers became cautious, unwilling to gamble on a company rumored to be struggling with quality. Plymouth fell hard. Ford overtook it. GM widened its lead. And as the forward look evolved into more restrained shapes for 1958 and 1959, the magic of that original, shocking transformation began to fade. By the mid-1960s, the 1957 Belvedere had all but vanished from American roads. Many succumbed to rust. Others were scrapped when the cost of repairs outweighed their value. A few lingered in barns and salvage yards, stripped of parts but still recognizable, the ghostly remains of Exner's most daring moment. Collectors ignored them for decades. Their flaws overshadowed their brilliance. Their legacy sank into the shadows. Yet history has a way of resurrecting the forgotten. In Tulsa, the city that once celebrated its statehood, with parades, music, and the burying of a brand new Belvedere as a time capsule symbol of American progress, the car waited, encased in concrete, wrapped in plastic, surrounded by hopes that the future would appreciate it. The Plymouth slept through storms, floods, and 5 decades of change. When its vault finally opened in 2007, the spectators expected a preserved treasure: golden paint, polished chrome, a perfect forward-look masterpiece preserved exactly as it had been. What emerged was something else entirely. The tarp peeled back like damp skin, revealing a shape that was once proud and now barely coherent. The Earth had collapsed the vault's seal decades earlier, turning the time capsule into a subterranean tomb filled with muddy water. Miss Belvedere, the car chosen in 1957 to embody America's confidence in the future, had endured not preservation but burial. Her roofline sagged under the weight of sediment. Chrome dissolved into pitted fragments. The bronze paint that once shimmered like new pennies had become a mottled landscape of corrosion. It was as if time itself had tried to erase the forward look. Yet the crowd did not recoil. They leaned closer. Cameras flashed. Children asked what it used to look like. Adults whispered about their parents, their youth. The first time they saw a '57 Plymouth rocket down the street, all fins and promise. Something unexpected happened in that moment. The decay made the car more powerful, not less. It was no longer just a machine. It was a relic of an America that believed the future could be built from optimism alone. Collectors and restorers studied the remains. Experts called the car "too far gone," a phrase spoken with equal parts regret and awe. Attempts to stabilize the metal were made, but the decades of immersion had turned structural steel into something closer to wet paper. In the end, Miss Belvedere was not restored but conserved, a monument to endurance rather than revival. She stands today not as a restored showpiece, but as a symbol, a car that achieved immortality not through survival, but through the story of its rise, its fall, and its rediscovery. And that is the strange power of the 1957 Plymouth Belvedere. It shocked Detroit with its beauty, stumbled under the weight of its own ambition, vanished into the anonymity of rust and scrapyards, and then returned, long after its rivals were forgotten, to become a myth. The forward look remains one of the most daring design revolutions in automotive history, a moment when Chrysler proved it could shape the future even if it could not quite hold on to it. The Belvedere's legacy now exists in fragments: the gleam of a preserved Fury at a car show, the weathered curve of a fender found in a barn, the ghostly silhouette rising from mud in Tulsa. Each piece whispers the same truth. Bold ideas burn bright, sometimes too bright to last. If this forgotten machine stirred something within you, leave a thought below. Your words become part of its long road back into memory. If stories like this linger with you, let it be known. Like it, share it, pass it on. And should you wish to walk deeper into the lost highways of Detroit's past, subscribe. The road ahead is filled with ghosts, and each one has a story worth hearing.